Hello, everyone, and welcome to Everbridge's webinar, How to Protect What Matters Most, Campus Safety During Blue Skies. My name is Linda Constantine, and I'm a member of Everbridge's marketing team. And I'm happy to introduce today's webinar. We are going to be following a panelist format today, where our subject matter experts will answer your questions about best practices that educational institutions can implement from lessons learned and the different types of capabilities that will keep students, faculty, and visitors safe from critical events. First off, we would like to welcome our speakers. Monica Mall is the Director of Public Safety for The Ohio State University. Benjamin Hunter is the Associate Vice President and Superintendent for Public Safety at Indiana University. Joining Monica and Ben on the panel is James Podlucky, who is the Industry Solutions Manager in the Center of Excellence at Everbridge. We'd also like to welcome Michael Ryan, who is the Director of Organizational Assessment Services for Margolis Healy, who will moderate today's webinar. Before I kick off the panel discussion, there are a few housekeeping items I'd like to review with you. First, we will email you a video recording of today's webinar, a copy of the slides, and any resources that may be mentioned during the webinar. Also, feel free to type in questions during the discussion into the question box in the control panel. We will then answer your questions in the order they come in. With that, I'm going to turn the discussion over to Michael.
Thank you, Linda, and good afternoon, everyone. While we're waiting for our presenters to come up on video, or panelists, I should say. Thank you again for taking the time to join us this afternoon. We have a few questions that we'll run through and give our presenters the opportunity to let us all hear the exciting work that's going on their campuses. And then we'll open it up to you who are viewing with your questions. First question we'll talk about is a topic that is near and dear to all of us. As we know, the most vital asset in a campus safety department are our employees. Hiring has been a challenge for all areas of the workforce. What we're most curious about is what strategies have you found to be effective in your campus? We'll start with Monica.
Well, we have been fortunate here at Ohio State because we are in the state capital and a large city. And so we're automatically going to have probably more folks around and applicants. But things we've tried to do, and we've done a lot of hiring, maybe 20 officers, I would say, in the last 5 years or so or more. What we've tried to do is, first of all, stay competitive with wages. That definitely helps. Also, we recently negotiated with our union. We always had somewhat of a lateral transfer, but we have increased that. There was a limit on how high we could bring in an officer from another agency in terms of the pay steps and the salary. But so we've increased that. We can bring them in now. Lateral transfers at the top pay step, which helps us attract folks from other departments around. We also, for entry-level candidates with no experience, are willing to pay to send them through academies. Not every department in Ohio does that. They often want an officer to go through an open enrollment academy and have their peace officer certification already. And that's a barrier to attracting candidates, especially a diverse pool of candidates. And so we're always open to taking folks that don't have any prior law enforcement experience, and we'll pay for them to go through the academy. And I would say those four things are the things we've really focused on in the last few years. And then again, we benefit from the setting that we're in as well. Other universities I've worked for in the past, it hasn't been as easy to attract candidates.
Thank you, Monica, very much for those experiences. I will turn it over to Ben.
Thanks. Like Monica, we've increased our salaries and trying to stay competitive. In fact, we're doing another market survey now, working directly with our union to make sure that we meet the market in Indiana. For me, I'm hiring for 9 locations across the state. And so that market varies from northern Indiana to southern Indiana. At our 2 core campuses, one of the strategies on recruitment is really focusing on what university policing is actually like. If you look back at law enforcement, a lot of times you're seeing recruitment videos, even for some campus law enforcement and university law enforcement agencies, that reflect more of a municipal style. We're not, doing high-speed chases. We're not doing undercover narcotics buys, but we do have things that interest people, and so we're focusing on that. We're focusing on our K-9 unit. We're focusing on specialties. We're focusing on teaching, working with our state academy, letting our recruits know that there are certifications they can obtain. We've also come to the realization that we're not going to get a large subset of candidates that are going to be with our agency for 20, 25 years now. It seems like a lot of individuals move on after 5 or 6 years and they continue to build up certifications. So we're willing to pay for that training as we look for the future in terms of the recruit that we want to attract. And then, to be blunt, we're chasing other departments like they've chased us. And we have a better retirement package. And so with those individuals that do want to come and work at Indiana University, we tell them what it's going to end up being in terms of their retirement or healthcare, all of that, and that has been successful. And I think a lot of universities, especially in the Big Ten for us and our peers and partners, have a great story to tell around that. And so we've doubled down on that, and we're doing financial health classes. So we're Fidelity, and we're working with our partners to bring in people and immediately put them into a financial health class so that they're making the right decisions long term for either whether they want to retire here or move on. But that's been really successful for us.
Thank you both. I think those are incredibly innovative ways to confront a economy which has made recruitment and selection challenging. Moving on to our next question, we'll start with Ben. How have you leveraged technology on your campus as a force multiplier? In other words, we've talked about recruitment as a challenge. How have you used technology to supplement those folks that you brought onto board?
Well, I could go on for like an hour, as you know, on this topic, and this is my favorite topic for us. We've doubled down on technology. We have cameras, card access, like most institutions our size. We do have body-worn cameras. We use a technology platform there that we've integrated. When we do an incident management team during an emergency, we'll go live on those cameras. So we'll use a fixed asset camera that may be a pan zoom, but we'll also use the officer's body-worn cameras, and we'll go live for those incidents, and we'll live feed them in. So if you think of any type of operations, whether it's our emergency operations center or whether it's a virtual bridge, we're feeding those incidents live into the center to make decisions. We just consolidated our 911 center. So that was a huge project costing, a lot of money. So we answer 911 calls across the state into one center now. And to assist with that redundancy, we are moving to the 911 Vesta program with AT&T, to where we have portability. So if that shuts down, we can then lift that 911 center and go to any room or any of the 500 buildings on the Bloomington campus and set up a 911 center. And so that was important to make sure we have redundancy. We have one radio system across the state. I can go on and on. We have GPS-enabled devices that we deploy for investigations that have been a game changer for us, especially around bicycle thefts. And that doesn't seem like for the common person coming in, that's like, oh, that's not a huge crime. But for our students and parents on any institution our size, it's a big deal. And so that has helped us. But probably my favorite project this year alone is just our drone program. So we moved to 4 drones. We're using them for traffic control, and right out of the gate, our first football game, we had a domestic disturbance that was quite public and individuals ran from the police. We didn't chase because our drones chased and they didn't know it. And so we were able to lock in and GPS, and the drone just flew above them, locked in, and they didn't go into a building, which was their mistake and our good fortune, and our officers were able to move in. So we didn't put anybody at risk, any tailgaters at risk or anything. We were able to track the suspect and make an arrest. So we use technology. I mean, that's probably the one thing my team knows. If they want to get funded, bring a tech solution, and I'm there.
Excellent. That's super innovative, and we can't wait to hear what Monica's doing at The Ohio State.
We do a lot of similar things, but I'll touch on a couple things. We have the campus pretty well covered. I think we have around in the neighborhood of 4,000 cameras across the campus. And so we're able to pull those up in a live feed into our comm center where our 911 dispatchers are at any time when anything's going on. Obviously on game days, those are the ones that are pulled up for them to watch during their shift. But we can track suspects via those cameras. But we also bought some mobile cameras for the off-campus areas last year and deployed those and do the same thing. And then we put about the newest addition is a little over 60 license plate reader cameras that we've deployed around campus. And that's been very helpful in terms of, again, tracking suspects and solving crimes. I will say, though, while it can at times be, technology can be a force multiplier, you do sometimes get to the point where you realize all of the extra leads you're generating and all of the technology then require more personnel on the other end to actually sift through those things and make the most use of that technology and get the most bang for your buck.
Excellent. Thank you. James, I'll kick it over to you if there's anything on that topic you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, sure. I think Ben and Monica brought up good points when it comes to security and access control, right? I mean, there's a lot of different, and I think even both of them know, and even probably everyone on the webinar here today know that universities are pretty much like cities. Some of them are and operate like cities. So while I think communication is extremely important, I think that's probably the most important aspect of an emergency. When we look at how we're managing some of these incidents, and we have, Monica, I know you said, how many cameras? Like a ton of cameras, right? So I think when we look at how our folks, our employees, security officers, public safety, how that all ties together, I think is extremely important. We talk about, different processes and workflows, and if there is an incident, I know a lot of universities probably have panic buttons or utilize some sort of panic button. And if a student hits that panic button, with all the cameras that are available, does that easily pop up, right? Can we streamline that process to where that security personnel is able to see exactly where that incident is or where that person is being maybe impacted or in danger, right? And then it kind of ties into, well, can you illuminate the area with lighting? I think that there's a lot of these different features and technologies and functions that are on campuses that it's important that they all kind of talk together and speak to each other. I think that's pretty important when, even for responders, to know exactly where the incident is or where to go. But aside from that, I think communication is probably a huge force multiplier when it comes to managing incidents, making sure that students, faculty, staff, even visitors have the ability to receive some sort of information or communication, whether that's on game day or whether that's for a severe weather event, especially through different various modalities, right? Going through email, text, going through, we see a lot of display TVs around campuses, and maybe someone may not be opted in to, notification system, and they're walking around campus, or maybe, they're attending a family event or whatever it is. They can see that on the screen that maybe there's an active shooter, or maybe there's, a fire within the building. So I think, kind of goes to a lot of different areas. There's a lot of different technologies that can be utilized on campuses. I guess it just depends, where it is that campuses or higher education institutions want to focus or maybe see their weakness and kind of build up. But I think communication really is the start of it, ensuring that you have a really good communications plan.
I appreciate that perspective for sure, James, and thank you. Moving along our discussion about communication with our key constituencies, which, let's be honest, our students. And the way in which students communicate has evolved almost 180 degrees from the days of putting envelopes in mailboxes on our campuses. So I'm going to start with Monica. What are some innovative ways you found to communicate with your campus? Obviously, beyond putting up flyers on bulletin boards, right? What are you doing?
Well, we just switched to something new in the last year. We used to send email notices out to students when there were crimes of concern or crime trends, and many of those were off campus. And so we would obtain from the city police information and then send out mass emails. And we found, students are really not reading email. They're on social media, whether that's TikTok, Instagram, all of the, the number of platforms. And they sort of wanted a one-click solution. So we sat down with undergraduate student government and got some ideas. And we certainly still have to send timely warnings for anything on university property for Clary, and we still do that via email and on social media and all these other ways. But for things that are not required for a timely warning, but we still want them to know about, like off-campus crime, significant off-campus crime, we've switched now from sending email notices to pushing out a link to a community crime map. So it's something the city already had available. It was powered through LexisNexis, but we have sort of prearranged that map that when they click on the link that we push out via social media and on various platforms, it will show a 1 mile radius around campus and about 10 or so of the most significant types of crimes. And it shows icons on where those are occurring. And then they have the ability to go into that map, or their parents, and put in an address and a mile radius, and they could get daily, weekly, or monthly email notices that will list the crimes for them. So they can get it both ways, because a lot of folks that are old, like my age, and parents, they wanted to see the emails. They liked the emails. And so they have the ability to sign up and get daily email alerts that go right from that crime map and right from the city police's data, rather than the university taking a day or two to get the facts and filter that. But it also provides students with that instant visual of what's going on right around the campus area. I think at first it was probably somewhat controversial anytime you try to, change something. It's something the students wanted, but I think parents were a little hesitant to switch to. But it's gone fairly well in the last year, and I'm glad we made the switch.
Excellent, excellent. Glad to hear that it's been well received thus far. Ben, we'll come over to you.
It's similar. We have similar notices, and then we do a community one as well. We're actually playing around with what Monica's talking about, and I failed to say that, she allowed us to come over and benchmark their 911 center a few years ago, and so it got a lot of great ideas. So the cross collaboration, as you know, and the Big Ten is vitally important to all of us. The mapping software that we've looked at, both the cities and all of our cities have a similar product, but one of the things is that we're fighting through is also that controversial thing. I think if people clicked on a crime map and realized what happens around them in a 1 mile to 2 mile radius, they would be shocked, right? But we also fight the perception of, why didn't you tell us what was going on? And we get that anytime there's something significant in any of the cities of our 9 campuses. So we're looking at that. The other thing on the communication side is just our Chiefs community advisory boards. We've ramped up the amount of times they're meeting, the minutes, the cadence. We now just launched a website on our Protect IU website that shows the boards, and eventually there'll be minutes, and we're going to put additional tools on there. And then we've created public dashboards as well. So if you go on our Protect website, you'll see public dashboards in terms of our community engagement and calls for service. All of those have been successful. And then, just like Monica, we're constantly working with student government to say, what's the next iteration? What do you want to see? And one of the things we found out is they really, not only do they not read email, most students, but they also don't want phone calls on the modalities. They've asked us, like, don't call us, but their parents want the phone calls. The quickest, simplest thing they want are text messages. They just want text messages. And that is the most easiest way for us, we can deliver that. We have been doing that and more frequently. And then the last thing is that we have a PIO, and we've increased her social media presence, and we've given her kind of the license to be the face of IUPD and IU public safety and become a miniature star and an influencer. And so she has all the channels available to her, and she's working with content all the time. And that, in a very short time, that's been successful as well.
Those are both super exciting initiatives that you have underway. I like that, referring to your PIO as an influencer. That's definitely an evolution of sorts, but I think it's where we're meeting people where they are. James, anything you'd like to add on that?
Yeah, so those are great. I love the map idea. I think that's very innovative, as well as the public dashboards. I've used public dashboards previously when I worked in emergency management, and I think it's a great way to get information out to the public, or even to students, faculty, staff. Right? I think we saw when COVID was going on, there were a lot of messages that were being sent out: wash your hands, stay certain distance away. And those constant messages, I think, led to a lot of folks kind of ignoring them, right? So I think when you look at your communication plans and your processes, and I think there were universities that went to that link, right? If there was a link where that was sent out to the students, faculty, staff, right, that all updates would be on this specific web page, so you're not overloading with information via text message. I'm kind of the same way, right? I'm probably not gonna, if I get a phone call and I'm doing something, I'm probably not gonna answer it, right, if I don't know who it is. So I think another best practice is communicating with your students on, where is that, what is the number where you're gonna be receiving emergency notifications from, and then you can put that within your phone. So when it rings, that is an emergency notification, right? You're not unfamiliar with that number. So I think those are some great best practices, especially when you want to expand your reach and you have large football games or large sporting events or concerts on your campus, and being able to have an opt-in system, right, to easily opt in using keywords, right? If there's a football game or if there's anything like that, you can easily have those folks opt in because they want to receive information probably from that specific event, and it's an easy opt out too. So I think there's many ways, I mentioned earlier in the previous question that, being able to hit display TVs and being able to, one click with social media posts. But I think that the biggest piece of communication and ensuring that your messages are getting out quickly is through templates and through, having those communications messages pre-identified, understanding, what different types of threats or hazards that your campus might face, and pre-crafting those messages and having them ready to go. So you're basically a few clicks, drop downs, whatever it is, maybe it's a building or whatever that looks like, and your message is simply crafted very quickly, and it goes out. You may have specific groups. You may not want to target, the same groups with the same message. So if you have the ability to, build a contact database to have, messages go out to different various groups of individuals to ensure that they're getting the message. And I know we talked a little bit about crime, and I think risk intelligence is another really important piece of it, to be able to quickly identify the different types of emerging threats that can impact campus, especially if you have multiple campuses, right, or outside the vicinity of a campus. Monitoring that, I think, is really important, whether that's through the deep web or the dark web. There's a lot of, we talk about social media, a lot of things being used. There's a lot of information going through outside of your typical social media, like Twitter, like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, right? There's Discord that's being heavily used lately. So I think incorporating some sort of open source intelligence to be able to collect and analyze, different things that are going on, not even within campus, but with outside, because it could have an impact, right? I think it was the North Carolina power substation sabotage that recently happened, where it impacted, county schools, it impacted hospitals, power outages. So there are things that can go outside of campus that may impact your campus. So it's important to have those communications, not only, or that risk intelligence, but that communication with stakeholders, outside of your campus.
Thank you, James. I think it's tremendous, all the innovative ways that we're using technology as the technology platforms themselves continue to evolve. The campus safety practitioners that we've heard from are continuing to evolve along with them. So that's tremendous. And it's a great segue to our next topic. As you all know, and those of us who are attending, colleges and universities exist part of a broad swath of the community. They don't stand on an island, and very few have defined boundaries, as they say. We're part of the broader community. So we'll go to Monica first and talk about how have you worked to incorporate the off-campus, or what I'll call campus adjacent areas of your communities, into your campus safety ecosystem. As you know, students live in those areas. They use the retail, they frequent commerce and transit. So how have you worked to incorporate that into what we'll call the ecosystem of campus safety?
Obviously, our primary responsibility has been, our jurisdiction on university-owned property, where we have about 15,000 students that live, but the other 45,000 live, near campus or within driving distance of one of our campuses. And so we've always had to have a close partnership with the city police. But in the last couple of years, we've had to assist a little bit more. In 2020, the city police had an unprecedented number of folks retiring, or finding other employment, and so they were down. And at the same time, every major city saw a sort of a post-COVID spike in crime. So it was sort of the perfect storm when they had fewer officers available and crime was at its highest level that it had been, at least in the recent number of years. And so with that, we had to help a little bit more and expand some of those partnerships and programs that we already had in place to help. And a few of the ways that we did that is the university hired a contract security service to do some extra patrols. So these would be non-police patrols of the off-campus areas. We expanded a partnership with Lyft that gives deeply discounted rides to students within a certain mile radius of campus to make sure they have safe transportation to and from, their residences and different, bars, eating establishments, other areas around town. We, as I mentioned, also paid for the installment of over 60 license plate readers, the majority of those being in those off-campus neighborhoods where our students lived. And then we always had one joint patrol officer, one OSU police officer that was teamed up full-time for their full 40 hours a week with a city police officer to patrol those neighborhoods off campus. And we increased that to 3. So we now have 3 OSU officers partnered up. And then we also have a program that we call crime interdiction, but it's essentially doing joint patrol on a part-time basis. And so on the nights and the times when we think students are out and about the most, the busiest nights, when classes are in session during the fall and spring semester on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, the university actually pays the city police to put extra personnel out on overtime. And then our OSU officers can also sign up, and as long as they're paired up to work with a city officer, they have jurisdiction. And then we also deployed mobile light towers in the off-campus areas. There were some areas where the lighting wasn't great. And the city has plans to enhance lighting in all neighborhoods across the city, but it's a large city. In the university district area where the university is, probably wasn't on their highest priority in terms of getting to first. And so the university sort of met them halfway. We put out mobile light towers, and in the meantime, we worked with the city to replace the LED bulbs into brighter bulbs in the university district. So now we've been able to remove all those mobile lights because we have either the city's added new permanent light fixtures or changed the light bulbs to brighter bulbs in those areas. And then, as I mentioned before, we put out mobile cameras as well in areas where putting up permanent cameras, there was just no power source or no easy way to do it. So we put out mobile camera trailers. And then we tried to enable those to where the city can tap into them, the city police, and so can we. And then we assist them when crimes occur. Our comm center and our video monitors will try to gather evidence and information and leads and give that to the city police. So all of those things together have come together in the last couple of years. Unfortunately, we saw a spike in crime around the summer of 2021. And since then, crime is about half in all the major categories since we implemented all those things. And we've been maintaining that sort of 50% reduction or lower since then. So it seems to be working, knock on wood, and we hope to continue that.
It's excellent strategies. Sounds like some great public-private partnerships, as well as partnerships with the local jurisdiction. So that's great to hear, and hope that you continue to see those downward trends. We'll go over to Ben.
So Mike, we've had some similar programs as well, and as you know, we looked at Rutgers a couple of years ago as well to see how you guys were handling the main campus. For our main campus, in the past, we've had grant-funded what we call Quiet Nights Patrol, where like Monica's team, we're teamed up with the city police and hitting a lot of those residential campuses. Additionally, we've also done our main thoroughfare, which is Kirkwood, that kind of goes down the city into the main portion of campus to the downtown area, where the city has hired our IUPD officers part-time to do patrols. So it varies for those type of programs. As we look at different programs beyond, we do mutual aid as well. So for example, because we're both short-staffed right now, so if they're taking a run and they need assistance, then we will respond, whether it's a faculty, staff, or student. It could just be a community member, but we will do mutual aid on those runs when needed, and vice versa. So that's worked out well. Something innovative that we just kicked off this year, though, is not beyond just the patrols, is for a 10-county radius with a local prosecutor and at the request of the General Assembly in Indiana, we're running our own high-tech crime unit. And so that's offered mutual aid and expertise. We're also working with our faculty, our expertise in technology there. And we're doing that in Bloomington, but we're also kicking a similar program off at our Indianapolis campus at IUPUI. And for that campus, the General Assembly also asked that all the agencies that are in the Indianapolis downtown area, which there are quite a few in Indiana. I was kind of amazed that they passed legislation that requires us to all work together on a mutual aid agreement and joint cooperation to keep the Indianapolis downtown core area safe, because our large medical school and the IUPUI campus are on the west side of the downtown area of Indianapolis. So similar to Monica, we continue to work with our local partners. It's a challenge, though, with the staffing for us, to keep those programs in place. And it's also the challenge from a risk management perspective in terms of us taking runs that have no nexus to Indiana University. But we obviously have the support of the cities that we're in, and we clearly have the support of the Indiana General Assembly that has required us to cooperate and work with our partners in Indianapolis, which has been great.
That's great. Again, another set of great partnerships to safeguard those campus adjacent and off-campus areas. James?
Yeah, so a lot of talk about, I guess, partnerships with stakeholders, right? And I think that one of the biggest pieces of that is communication, especially when it comes to an incident. I mentioned the power substation piece where it involved schools, it involved hospitals, right? It probably involved local first responders. And when looking at communication plans, I believe that it's important to eliminate or prevent the spread of rumors. And I think the best way for that when it comes to your stakeholders is sort of building a network, right? So when you have maybe your local emergency management or your hospitals and businesses really being able, if there is an incident on a campus, how is that communicated outside of campus? And can that be done easily, right? Can that be done with the push of a button? And when you identify who those folks are that need to be communicated prior to, having them easily be within that network, having your message already crafted, and then just being able to send it out to them. But not only that piece, I think it goes, yes, it can go from like higher ed out, but it can also go outside of your campuses into like a higher education for them to be aware if there's something going on off campus that maybe emergency management or first responders know about, and then it's going to go ahead and impact your campus, I think you all would want to be notified about that very quickly, right? Because we know how fast these rumors can be spread. So that one of the things that I've done, in building out situation reports as those go out to your stakeholders, right, and being a part of these massive distribution lists. I remember working hurricanes, and everyone wanted to get on that distribution list because they wanted to receive a situation report. And you were almost so busy doing that piece along of all the other million things we have to do with an emergency operations center. So I think when you pre-identify those and you have that communications plan intact with the correct stakeholders, then that helps. It's going to help streamline response, I believe. If you have an active shooter on campus, right, and you want to notify your first responders outside 911, you want to notify hospitals that something's going on, just within that click of a button, right, you have those pre-crafted messages, you have that network of those group of folks that you want to send a message to, and by doing that, you're also preventing the spread of rumors. But the other cool part of that, I think, is that when the other stakeholder, right, if you say you have a local emergency management department that's sending a message out within that network to a campus, the ability for that campus to take that exact same message and then send it out to their folks, send it out to their students, send it out to their faculty. And I think that helps with one voice. I think someone mentioned, I think it was Ben, that we had a public information officer, right? We want to make sure that we're working with other public information officers around your area, around your jurisdiction, around the state. So I think being able to communicate that and have that streamlined is really important when it comes to working with stakeholders.
Yeah, can I add to that, Mike?
Absolutely.
We have I'm sure like Monica, we have a lot of programs that are housed on other institutions. We have programs that are housed at Ball State, Notre Dame, Indiana State University. And so we're just now in the infancy of actually working with Notre Dame, to James, to your point. So if Notre Dame sends an alert, it automatically pings our system and generates that, so we don't have to do anything. And so I think that's key to keeping faculty and staff that go to different institutions that are on programs that are maybe doing research, or our medical school, that will keep them safe by, we're relying, because we trust those institutions. We trust if Notre Dame is going to send a message, it's being sent for the right reasons. We shouldn't have to filter that and then hit our students that are in programs on their campus. It will automatically ping and go through our system. So our two IT departments are actually working together now to figure that out.
No, it's definitely worthwhile, and it sounds like from all of you that collaboration is key towards being effective in those off-campus and campus-adjacent communities, and really incorporating them into the campus safety ecosystem in each of your environments. So thank you for that. For our last topic, and then I want to give some time for those attending today to pose some questions of our panelists. But for our last topic, I'd like to talk about how you've implemented lessons learned from critical incidents. And I want to caveat that question, recognizing that some of your modifications and these features may not be ripe for public disclosure, and that's okay. Recognizing that this webinar is being attended by a number of individuals, what can you tell us that may help them and their communities work to implement lessons learned? For that, we'll start with Ben.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time on this. In fact, we just, our IT department just created our own document management system for after action reviews. And to your point, we're very transparent about it. Dr. Natalie Hipple at our Bloomington campus and I just got a manuscript that will be published in an academic journal on this very topic, about how we're constantly reviewing after action, from technology to our response to mutual aid agreements, all of that. But every incident that we're involved in that either sends an alert or a major critical event has an after action review process. We have a policy in place that it gets reviewed from top to bottom, and that's what we've retooled. And I've been at IU for 6 years, and I just recently reviewed almost 400 and some of those after action reviews to look for common themes that we need to move and advance forward. We also did that to be able to look at a document management system that will make people responsible. So a lot of the times lessons learned are just not within public safety and emergency management. It may be a university policy, it may be a dean that needs to do something. So what we've created now is a mechanism that identifies those individuals in our full enterprise and then generates a process for them. And we have the support of our president and all of our senior executives at IU that will advance that process. So so if we have a budget issue, for example, that we may not be able to solve in public safety, we have to turn to our finance folks. And so that they'll then get pinged and they'll be part of that after action review process. And then we have to have closure on it. So our new process requires closure. It just can't sit there for 3 or 5 years on a wish list going, well, did we achieve this, right? There has to be a reason. And that closure may be that we can't fund something, right? And that's closure. So we have a wide range of options that we've worked into this. So it's in its infancy. We've actually just did our second after action review in this new document management system that requires accountability throughout the enterprise. And hopefully we'll see a change, because people have embraced the process top to bottom. But again, they're tangible items. I mean, from staffing to technology, they're all expensive items and lessons learned. But the biggest lessons learned is how to implement policy. What we have found is that sometimes we miss notifications, or did we notify the individuals that need to be notified? Could that be a research lab on a power outage? Did someone lose an expensive research project? And so that system will then create checklists during an emergency as well that will ensure that any lesson learned is incorporated in a future emergent item, and emergency management will then manage that process during the emergency.
That's excellent. I love those ideas of both making lessons learned part of the pan-institutional responsibility, part of the enterprise. And I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize the importance of checklists in those critical incidents, right? If it's not written down, it didn't happen, and it makes it that much easier for someone who's on the front line, so to speak, to ensure expectations are met at 2 in the afternoon or 2 in the morning. So thank you very much. Those are great examples. Monica, come over to you.
Yeah, I will be brief so there's time for questions, but Ben, I really like the idea about requiring some sort of resolution when there's a recommendation, even if it's just that we can't fund that right now. That's something that I'll have to talk to you further about in terms of that tracking system. Similarly to what Ben shared, we do after every critical incident a thorough after action review to see what we can learn. And I'll just give one example. We had an incident in 2015, did a after action review, and what resulted from that paid off in another critical incident the following year in 2016. And that was that we, in the first incident, there was the perception on campus that we could have gotten the emergency notification out and information about the incident out faster. And so we installed what we sort of call easy buttons in the comm center, where a dispatcher can just turn around and hit a button and it automatically sends out the emergency notification via text. Now, of course, that is a canned message, and you can't just leave it at that, but it's important to get that first message out fast that gets everyone's attention, tells them that there is something going on, so they can then use their 5 senses to look at where they are. As we know, it's hard, at least on a campus this size, to give someone information about what specifically they need to do when we don't know where they are or what their situation is on campus. And so the idea for that first message is just get their attention and say that there is a critical incident, and it could be very broad: active shooter reported, active aggressor, something like that. And then from there, that gives your comm center staff and emergency management folks time to sort of log in and send those more detailed messages as information comes in. And so in 2015, we realized that was needed, implemented those, and when we had an active aggressor attack in 2016, we were able to get out that notification very quickly, and it really paid off. It got folks' attention until we could then give them more information. And then what we learned in that after action review was, even though there was no new information to share as the hours ticked on and we were searching buildings and such, it wasn't anything different we wanted the community to do, but we waited too long to update them. after the initial information. And when you're sort of sheltering in place, that can be very anxiety provoking. And even if there's no new information to share, and we solve that, in future incidents with just a simple timer. We just click the timer, and every 15 minutes it goes off, and that reminds us that if we haven't shared any information, that we need to send a follow-up text to the community to let them know what's going on if we sort of haven't given that all clear. So they're just two small examples of things where after action reviews then paid off pretty quickly in the next incident.
Yeah, another set of great recommendations and lessons learned from your lessons learned, right? It's tremendous when you try to talk about streamlining. And I think while you didn't use the term checklist, it certainly sounds like you were referring to a checklist, right? Of putting out that first message and then following your process to make sure we're keeping the community informed. So James, before we open it up to any attendees, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, sure. And as Ben could probably talk an hour about the technology that he implemented on campus, I could probably talk for hours on after action reports. I started my career in training and exercise in the state of Florida, emergency management. And I like what both of them said there. I mean, I think it's really important, and I love after action reports or improvement plans, but I love when they're interactive, right? A lot throughout my career, we've kind of created these paper plans and they end up on a shelf and, they collect dust, and then the next incident comes and we're repeating the same stuff. I think when you start, having a solution or a system where you can have an interactive improvement plan where you're actually assigning tasks, right? Like Ben said, it's not always going to be emergency management. We don't know everything. We don't have everything, right? We're just basically, being a coordinator within incidents, and there's going to be a lot of responsibilities, and there's going to be a lot of, after action items that fall into other departments, or they may own those, right? So I think when you tie in status, when you tie in priorities, when you tie in the core capabilities, right, you tie in all of these different things into an interactive dashboard, into an interactive list, right? I think that's really, really important. And I think it kind of helps basically understand or at least document what went wrong, but the follow through, I think it really helps with the follow through. And if you're looking as a university to kind of embrace certain technology, I think after action report or improvement plans and digitizing that piece, I think is a very simple first step, right? I mean, you have your incident, you can put everything within that system and work on that. That'd be like your first thing you do from a technology standpoint, and then you can build upon that, right? With plans, with incident management plans, with dashboards for different sections, operations, logistics. You get into a lot of other areas when you're actually managing incident. So I could probably talk about that for a very long time, but we can go ahead and answer some questions for sure.
No, I think that's it's great information from all of you. While we're preparing to answer some questions, I'd be remiss if I did not extend my thanks to all of our panelists today on behalf of both Margolis Healy and Everbridge for taking the time to share your lessons learned with the rest of us. We'll go over to some questions. If there are any questions from those in the audience, please feel free to put them into the chat. I feel a bit like a radio host here. I'm not sure if I should identify the city the person's calling from or not, but the first question that's come in is during game days for both of you, your campuses swell well beyond their boundaries. What are you doing to address that in preparation for and recovery of? Great question.
Well, I feel like Monica gets more people than we do, so I'll let her go first.
I
was going to say, you said it, I may have been thinking it.
Well, it's an enormous effort, and I am not sad that we're past that point of the season where we're hosting games, because we get a little break, but we really have to rely on, again, that's why those relationships in the community are so important. We have to rely on the city police, the county sheriff, the state highway patrol, and then a lot of little suburbs around here that we have mutual aid with, as well as many, many different, units of university employees across campus traffic control is probably, I would say the biggest headache, and parking in terms of trying to get, over 100,000 people in and out of the stadium on 6 or 7 Saturdays a year. And then all the behind the scenes things that we, fans don't see, all the Homeland Security initiatives, and that takes partnerships at the federal, state, and local level as well. And so we start, our briefings, whether it's sweeps of the stadium with canines, all of those for, say, a noon kickoff start as early as 3 and 4 a.m. And it's a very long day for many of our staff members. So it just takes a coordinated effort. And similar to these after action plans, every year when the season is over, then we have to sit down and take a look at some of the things that popped up that maybe hadn't happened before, or that we felt we weren't as prepared for as we wanted to be, and tweak those plans going into the next season. And we, this season was fairly hard because our first 5 games were all home games and they were back to back. And that was sort of unusual. We opened up with Notre Dame, which was, and then ended with Michigan, which were 2 big games that got a lot of attention. And I just can't say enough about all of our federal, state, and local partners, because we wouldn't be able to do it without their help.
Excellent, thank you.
I'd echo the same, but maybe half the crowd. So, I mean, our stadium's half the size in terms of what Monarch has, but you have folks that still show up and tailgate that never even go in the venue too. And then you have a downtown type of party atmosphere. And so all the same things, and I can't underscore that the assistance that we get from, our state partners, Indiana State Police, our federal partners, the FBI is at every game. Sometimes we have additional federal partners, and for us, just the FAA, you wouldn't think that, all of that in terms of what's a flight pattern, what isn't, all of that is operated out of our Emergency Operations Center, which we moved off-site this year into a larger facility, and it's, massive amounts of technology in that room to what we're monitoring, but, similar experiences, I think, for all the Big Ten institutions.
Excellent. And James, any closing comments?
No, I think it kind of goes back to security, right, and access control and cameras and stuff. I think during those big games and how everything connects, and even just, we've talked about stakeholders and partnerships. I mean, we just can't really stress how important that is. Not every campus or university has all the resources needed to manage large events. And I think, we've seen, I've been in planning processes during the presidential inauguration and, sporting events, and it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. So I'm sure, but you also get, I think, not used to, but you definitely learn from each and every game, and almost becomes somewhat, a rhythm to where you have those processes, and it kind of becomes somewhat easy, but you always have to, understand, what could potentially happen, because, that's huge. I mean, that can have a huge impact if you have a critical event that would happen at a sporting event. So it definitely takes a lot of work and a lot of planning by these universities for sure.
Excellent. Well, I know we're right at the end of time, and I want to be respectful of that. Thank you again to our panelists and those of you who took the time to attend today. Linda, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Mike. With that last question, this concludes today's webinar, and thank you to everyone for joining.
Thank you.